Hey everybody, welcome to Twisted Tragedies, where we follow all the twists and turns wherever they lead. I am your fearless leader, Elise. Sorry about that. People should know better. I'm on. So tonight we're going to talk about the Lorianne Phillips saga that we have going on. And Lorianne Phillips supposedly, allegedly hit her husband and found him in a snowbank next to their house. So she testified yesterday and today on this, actually in her own case. She's being charged with, I think it's vehicular homicide. Hold on. I gotta check. And it's like a hit and run, basically, but that's what they're saying. Like, the charges are... Oh, 2 hours. Jury finds Lorianne Phillips not guilty of reckless homicide. So that's reckless homicide is what they charged her with. Second degree reckless homicide in the death of her husband, Mark. So, I mean, that sucks. That sucks. Hello. So not guilty, she was found. But there's a lot of similarities in the case between this one and Karen Reed, especially the injuries to her husband, Mark, who, happened to be sorry guys, it's my husband, but I don't know why he's calling me when he knows I'm live. But yeah, so they found him in snowbank next to the house. Let's see. I have some of her testimony from today and yesterday. I'm glad she was found not guilty, though. Hold on, let's get that up. Make that full screen, though. Full screen, please. Thank you. So we're going to check out some of this because what she says, like, and how it happened is kind of important.
Given this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Have a seat over here.
Alrighty. Would you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
Lori Phillips?
Ms. Phillips, are you the widow of Mark Phillips?
I am.
I'm going to ask you some of the questions that we're all here to decide. At any point on February 22nd of 2019, did you have reason to believe that your husband, Mark, would die?
No.
Was that ever your intent?
No.
Let's talk a little bit about how you and Mark met. When did you meet?
Well, I've known Mark for many, many years, but I met back up with him in June of 2016.
What was happening in June of 2016?
And we were at I was at June Dairy Days with a friend, and he went running by.
Okay, you kind of did a little roadrunner motion there.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So we were standing outside watching the band, and Mark was running by, like going back into the bar or beer tent to see his friends, and he's like, as he always says, he was like, "Skirch," like he stopped and he's like, "Oh, hey," and said hi.
The two of you strike up a conversation at that point?
We did.
Did that eventually lead to a romantic relationship with Mr. Phillips?
Yes, a few months later, yes.
Okay, so when approximately did the two of you start dating?
It was August of 2016.
And what was the beginning of your relationship like with Mark?
It was awesome. He was amazing. We just had so much fun together.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we would like watch TV together. We would cook together. I mean, we'd been known to dance in the kitchen together. Like we'd spend time with family and friends, hang out at the pool. I mean, we did a lot.
At the beginning of the relationship, were things pretty good with Mark?
They were awesome.
And at some point during that, after starting to date, did the two of you eventually move in together?
Yes.
When approximately did that happen?
So we got engaged in February and I think I moved in March.
Okay, so a very fast progression of the relationship from beginning to date.
Very fast.
Didn't they only get into like
And
3 years?
when you moved in together, how would you describe your relationship with Mark?
It was great.
Were there days after your relationship progressed that things were not so great with Mark?
Yes, there were times.
What do you mean by that, Lori?
We had problems.
Were there points in your relationship when Mark specifically was not pleasant to be around?
Yes.
What points of the relationship were those?
Well, they would be if Mark was jealous over somebody. That's really the only problem we ever had.
Let's talk about Mark's jealousy. What did Mark look like when he was jealous?
He's very angry.
Could you describe that a little bit? What would Mark look like when he's angry or jealous?
Well, I mean, he would just be like yelling, screaming, sometimes becoming physically abusive.
And what kind of things would set Mark off and make him jealous?
If somebody looked at me, if there was somebody who was maybe I don't know if I want to say intimidated by, but maybe like he thought that they had some type of interest or something.
So are we talking about men here, Lori?
Yes.
And was that how Mark behaved right at the beginning of your relationship?
At the beginning, he was fine.
Is this something that happened as the two of you kind of settled into this pattern of dating?
Yes.
So let's talk about this. When Mark would get jealous, how could you tell?
Well, I mean, just by his tone of voice, he would create scenes. He would call me names.
What kind of names would he call you?
But horror, things like that.
Is that fairly common?
It was.
And what kind of things would prompt Mark to call you names like slut or a whore? Would there be a particular triggering event?
Well, I mean, this only happened when he was drunk. We didn't argue when he was sober.
And let's talk about that. So have you seen Mark drunk in the past?
Yes.
Many times?
Yes.
And do you feel like you would be able to recognize when Mark was getting drunk?
Yes.
Now, when Mark got angry, did he also or when Mark got jealous, would he also get angry?
Yes.
Who would that anger typically be directed at?
Me. It was always me.
And what kind of things did he blame you for, Lori?
Well, he would think that I wanted somebody else or something. That would be his main thing.
Was that something that happened often where Mark would assume that you were interested in another man?
In his mind, yes. It was never true, but yes, in his mind.
Did that happen more than a few times, Lori, throughout the course of your relationship?
Yes.
So I want to stop right there for a second, because anyone who has been in a relationship with someone who was a abuser, whether it was just mental and emotional or mental, emotional, and physical, knows exactly what Lorianne Phillips is talking about right here. That it's true in their mind, it's just not true in real life. And what she was saying is her husband, Mark, never, ever acted this way when he was sober, right? Never acted like that when he was sober. So that's important to her story, at least, with what happens when they get in this argument and he, she leaves to go stay at a hotel. So it's important. I just figured out it wasn't my hubby going, it's my kid. She's at softball with him because she begged to go and she doesn't have school tomorrow. So, but yes, so it's important. I want to stop it there because anybody who's been a survivor of any sort of mental, emotional, or physical abuse, like I have, and some of you that I know of, knows exactly what Lorianne Phillips means when she says, he was only like that when he's drunk, or, in his mind it was true. in real life it was not, but in his mind it was. Like, so I just wanted to point that out real quick.
So is something as simple as just another man looking at you, is that enough to set Mark off when he was drinking?
Yes, I would always get in trouble for that
You said you would get in trouble. Why do you say you would
Yeah.
get in trouble, Lori?
because he took it out on me.
Because it was your fault whenever another man showed you.
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Did you have an impression as to whether or not Mark assigned fault to you or another person when another man paid attention to you?
The fault would always be mine.
Now, you mentioned some verbal abuse. How would that look like, Lori? I mean, you said that he would yell and scream and call you names. Would this be a short-term thing? Would he go on for a period of time? What would that typically look like when he would become verbally abusive?
Mark didn't drop things very easily. He continued. He would go on and on.
And is that something that you dealt with on a fairly consistent basis when Mark was drunk?
Oh, yeah.
Did Mark ever escalate the abuse from verbal to something else?
The physical?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you describe that for us, please?
I mean, specific instances or what?
Well, just generally speaking, what do you mean by the abuse turning physical?
So, I mean, he's pushed me before. He's choked me numerous times. He's grabbed me and like walked me around things.
Like forcefully grabbing you by the arm and walking you
Objection
someplace?
leading.
Sustained.
Could you describe how he forcefully walked you around?
Yes, he would grab my arm and, for instance, an actual instance, and walk me around the truck and basically shoved me into the truck.
Did that hurt when he
Mhm.
would grab you and walk you around like that?
Yes.
And Lori, how did you feel about Mark when he was jealous and angry and upset with you about whatever his jealousy was at the moment?
How would I feel about him, did you ask?
Yes. How did that make you feel?
Confused,
How did it make me feel when he was jealous?
angry.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't like it. I'm not sure
Sure.
what, I'm sorry.
Did his behavior ever reach the point where you were scared of him?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
And would that include both the verbal and the physical altercations?
Yes,
So you mentioned that these incidents tended to happen or tended to be worse when he was drinking. Is that correct?
yes, that's correct.
Did this type of thing generally happen when Mark was sober?
Never, never, no, he was amazing when he was sober. Mark was the greatest guy. And that's one point I want to make clear.
When he was drinking, could he be a different guy?
100%.
Now,
Usually that's how it
Lori, when
works.
Mark was drinking, would you behave differently around him in any respect?
Yeah, I mean, I would make sure to like check my surroundings to make sure that like I'm not going to run into any, I don't know, good looking guys or something. I don't, I'm just going to make sure that I'm not going to upset my husband.
Walking on eggshells.
And was that something that you were just conscious of, that you were trying to avoid good-looking men?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know if they have to be good looking or not, but just anybody, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to put a halt to anything that could potentially happen. Yes.
Put your head down.
And Lori, was that a practice that you adopted after a number of these instances where Mark was taking his jealousy and anger out on you?
Objection. Frame of the question.
Try to reframe it.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
Lori, why did you adopt this approach?
Okay. I'm sorry because I got all confused as to what
Sure.
happened. So I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, before we do that, can we have a quick sidebar?
How is she supposed to know what all that means? That's all legalese. Like, how about you guys explain to her what she's supposed to do and what she isn't supposed to do? Like, that's usually how it works. And obviously they did not do that. It's a, you answer this question or you don't answer that question. They don't know. She don't know. Like, she's not an attorney. Like, maybe allow her to answer the question, but like, I don't know why the DA is objecting because they're just going to ask the question in a different way. It's kind of silly to object to it because they're going to get the answer one way or another.
Lori, when you were out with Mark and he was drinking, did you always remain cautious of your surroundings to avoid triggering him?
Always.
Now, I want to talk about a few specific incidents leading up to this, and I want to bring you back to your birthday on January 19th of 2018. Is that in fact your birthday, Lori?
Yeah. What, January 19th? Yes.
Yeah, not of 2018,
Yeah.
obviously. But did you have any plans for that day?
We did. We owned a party bus. So we
Hey.
hired a
Can you help me?
driver, designated driver to actually take some friends and family from Holman to Winona to pick up more friends and family to like go bar hopping.
Okay. And what's a party bus?
It was I believe ours was an old shuttle bus that they would do like a hotel airport shuttle bus, like in the cities.
Is that just something that, in what ways would you use the party bus?
To take our friends around and go drinking.
Okay.
But we always
Yeah.
had a designated driver.
Okay.
There.
So the plan was that you and your friends and family would all go out bar hopping?
Correct.
Where were you going to go out bar hopping?
We were in Winona.
And was Mark part of these plans?
Absolutely.
Now, did that end up being a fun evening for you, Lori?
In the beginning, yes,
At some point, did that change?
it did.
What changed?
We were at a particular bar, Mulligan's Bar, and the owner, which I
Always a
happen to know,
Always a mulligan.
kind of said, we were leaving, Mark, we were all leaving, and he kind of like gave me like a little pat and said, "Happy birthday," right when we were walking out the door.
Okay, so you motioned with the palm of your hand, a little pat. Where did he pat you?
Like probably my shoulder blade or something.
Okay. Anything sexual or romantic about that touch, Lori?
No, not at all.
Okay. How did you react to being pat on the back?
I didn't think a thing about it.
Why would you?
Did you notice anything about Mark at that point?
Yes,
What did you notice about Mark?
Mark was pissed
Why do you say he was pissed?
because he started to make a scene after we left the bar. He was making a scene and yelling.
What kind of things was he yelling?
Same things he always does, that I'm a slut and a whore.
Did you have some sense as to why Mark was yelling at you that you were a slut and a whore at that point?
Well, I think he may have, I don't remember, but he may have said like something about letting some man touch me or something. I don't remember,
Letting.
but that's how I figured out what he was talking about.
Control over
Lori,
somebody's
did you see
body.
that as a proportionate reaction to
No, it's not normal.
what had happened with Dan at Mulligan's tapping you on the back?
Bless you, Fritz.
Bless.
No, it's her thoughts about whether it's proportionate. Go ahead.
Yeah, did you see that as a proportionate or appropriate reaction to what had happened between you and Dan?
Was it appropriate?
Do you believe that Mark reacted appropriately?
No. He overreacted.
Now, at that point, was the argument over?
No.
What happened next?
Nope.
We actually, so we had been leaving. We had walked out of Mulligan's. We got into the party bus and we went to our last bar at that time, which was the East End, which Matt Girac, who was here earlier, a bar that he bartends at.
Were you able to observe whether or not Mark was still upset at the point that you reached the East End bar?
East Side, yes.
East Side, my apologies. How could you tell?
Well, because he continued to argue and make a scene.
Still appeared to be angry to you?
He was angry, yes.
What,
appeared,
if anything,
was.
happened next?
Well, at one point, he like pulled me out of my chair. He tried to pull me out of my chair. I don't know if he wanted to talk or if he was trying to get me to leave. I don't know what he was, I don't recall. I don't remember, but at one point then he just took everybody that came from Holman and left.
Well, let's talk about when he was pulling you from the chair. Was he angry with you at that point?
Yes.
What kind of things was he yelling and was he yelling and screaming still?
Was he? Yes, he was.
Do you recall anything particular that Mark was yelling and screaming at you as he was trying to pull you off the chair?
I mean, it's going to be the same things.
It's always the same things.
I'm asking specifically as to the East Side bar. Did Mark say anything in particular while he was grabbing you on the arm?
probably let's go. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't.
Lori, is it fair to say that you're nervous testifying today?
Yeah, I am, yes.
Um, you heard Mr. Girox's testimony about what Mark said
Oh,
to
I'm
you?
sorry. Okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about. And I don't even know how this came into context, but he called me,
You can say the N-word, or just refer to it as the
he
N-word.
called me an N-word loving whore.
Oh, God.
And was he doing anything to you while he was calling you that?
Well, I think that's when he was pulling me out of my chair.
What was your reaction to that, Lori?
Well, I didn't understand where that was coming from, but I mean, it was scary. I don't know what he was doing. It's
Okay. Now, what happened next?
then he got his group of people and left.
Did you leave with them?
No, he left me behind
Were you the only one left behind, Lori?
from the party bus. Well, okay, from the people that came from home and on the party bus, yes.
Now, did you and Mark have a chance to chat about what had happened the next day?
We did, well, I mean, I know that we had some text exchange,
And at any point, did Mark apologize to you?
of course.
Is that something that he did often after incidents like this?
He always apologized the next day.
Did you always accept his apologies?
I did,
Were you always willing to forgive Mark?
yes,
Why?
because I loved him.
Let's
Yep.
talk about August 3rd of 2018. Do you remember having plans with Mark that day?
Yes.
What were you supposed to be doing that day?
So that day I actually switched my shift so I could get done early. Mark and I were going to do what we called a date day. So I was gonna get done at like 1, I wanna say, and then Mark and I were gonna just, the two of us, hang out in the pool together all day.
Okay, so kind of a special day that the two of you had planned?
Just the two of us, because normally we have people over in the pool.
All right. Why don't we walk through the day, starting in the beginning? Do you remember interacting with Mark at all when the two of you got up?
Yeah, so I actually logged on and I worked at home, so I logged on to work and Mark actually went out to breakfast with his parents.
And was there anything about that that was notable to you?
Well, I mean, I think they met at like 7:30 a.m.
Really?
And I know that that's Mark started drinking at that time.
Okay,
Oh,
where,
boy.
where did they go for breakfast? if
Early,
you
bruh.
recall?
Nutbush.
Okay, they do have great breakfast there, but what would Mark, were you familiar with what Mark would typically drink at Nutbush?
Well, normally at breakfast time, he would get a bloody with like a beer chaser.
So a
Ugh.
Bloody Mary with a beer chaser?
Correct.
Was that typically
Disgusting.
all that Mark drank at breakfast?
Well, after the Bloody Mary and beer chaser, he would normally just order a bottle of beer.
Okay. At some point after
from there in the
breakfast,
morning?
did you have a chance to interact with Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, here.
And did you notice whether or not he had been drinking at breakfast?
Well, I think he kind of threw it in my face that he had a good Bloody Mary. So while I was working.
All right. Now, what happened next?
So Mark was coming home and he said he had gotten a call from Mo, a guy that he works with, and said he had forgotten that he promised Mo that he would golf in a golf tournament that day.
Okay. And I'm just going to ask you, Lori, how did you react to Mark saying that he was going to go golfing instead of
I'd have
spending
been
the day
pissed.
with you?
I was super disappointed,
Okay.
but I told him I wasn't going to say no, he couldn't go, but I was hoping that if I said that he would make the rational decision and not go since we did have plans.
Did he end up going golfing?
He sure did.
And is there anything about Mark and
Wow.
golfing that concerned you?
It was
Drinking.
drinking beer all day.
Okay. Is that something that he typically did when he was out golfing?
Yes.
Yep.
And did you have any chance to communicate with Mark throughout the day?
Yeah, I mean, we were texting and calling for a portion of the day.
At any point, did you get the sense that Mark was beginning to become intoxicated?
Yes.
And did that concern you, Lori?
Yes.
Why?
Because Mark turns into a different person when he's drunk.
Right.
Now, at some point, did the time of day get into the evening?
Yes. So, well, originally when he told me he was going to go golfing, he said he would come home. He'd be home by 4, which I already knew that wasn't going to be true. So I gave him to like 5 or 6 into when I started calling him, and that's when he started ignoring me. So yeah, went into evening, and then he stopped answering my calls, so I ended up calling Mo to try and talk to my husband.
Okay. Did you get a sense that Mark was drunk from what you were able to observe?
Oh yeah,
And at some point, did it get later into the evening?
yes.
Um, had you seen Mark by the time that you were ready to go to bed that evening?
No,
Um, what was your impression of where Mark was or what he was doing at that point?
they were bar hopping.
Okay. And
Yes, they were.
were you concerned that Mark had been out drinking all day?
Yes, since 7:30 in the morning, correct.
Did you take any steps in response to that when you were getting ready to go to bed?
I did, I locked the door
Why'd you lock the door, Lori?
because I didn't want any altercation.
You were worried that, is that something you were worried would happen if Mark came home in that condition?
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you figure that Mark would do if you locked the door and locked him out?
Well, I would think that he would go sleep in the man cave. He's done that before.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the man cave. Does that have a couch or a futon or something where somebody can sleep on it?
It had actually a pretty large couch.
And you said that that's something that Mark's done before, that he's passed out in the man cave?
He has.
All right. Did you end up sleeping through the night that evening, Lori?
No,
Why not?
because Mark came home, I want to say he came home at like 11:30 at night, somewhere around there, somewhere 11:30. I can't remember what time it was. But he was locked out, so he started pounding on the bedroom windows.
Did you have a chance to observe Mark at any point while he was pounding on the bedroom windows?
I don't know if I looked out the windows, but I mean, I obviously heard him.
And what was your impression of whether or not Mark was drunk or sober at that point?
He was-
Obviously.
I'm going to say he was like annihilated. He was drunk.
Mhm.
Okay. What happened next?
Well, at some point he called his parents over, and I mean, I guess I should say that the house that we lived in was Mark's, but under his parents' name.
Now, did you want to let Mark in when
Weird.
he was in that condition?
Absolutely not.
Did Mark eventually end up getting into the house?
He did.
How did that happen?
He broke down the back door.
Oh,
Did you
damn.
physically see the remains of the door after it had been broken down?
I did.
And what's the first contact you remember having with Mark inside of the home at that point?
That's no
Well,
good.
he and his mom and his dad all like ran through the house into the bedroom where I was laying.
What in particular did you notice about Mark when he ran into the bedroom?
He ran over around the other side. So our bed is here, and they come in this door, and I was laying over here, so he ran over here. His parents stayed over here.
Did anything concern you about the
She got the
location where
box.
Mark ran to?
Yes.
What concerned you about that?
Well, because he ran over and lunged for something.
All right. And when you say lunge, do you mean that he was lunging with an arm, with a hand grasping for something?
Correct.
Where was the hand lunging towards?
Well, we have a safe, and there was a loaded gun laying on the safe.
Is that something that was typically there?
Yes.
And what was your impression of what Mark was lunging for when he ran into the room?
The gun?
Did Mark end up grabbing the gun?
No.
Now, Lori, did you take any action in response to Mark breaking down the door and lunging towards that safe where the gun was?
I did. I called the police
Why did you call the police?
because my husband was drunk and running for a gun, and he was upset.
Were you scared of Mark at that point?
Of course I was.
All right. At some point after the August 3rd of 2018 incident, did you and Mark end up breaking up?
After the August 3rd, yes.
And did you end up moving to a different location at some point, Lori?
I did. I moved into an apartment on Alaska.
You remember what the address was?
Yep. It was 518 Quincy Street, apartment number 1.
Now, after you and Mark broke up, did Mark leave you alone?
No,
Why do you say that?
because he used to break into my apartment when I wasn't home,
That's nice.
and when I was home.
Okay. Let's talk in particular about one of those incidents. You mentioned that Mark, there was a particular incident where Mark broke in.
So again, let's just mention she has been found not guilty of this, right? And I kind of want to speed it up to where they were started to talk about it, and I don't know why they stopped talking about what happened that night. Let's see if we can pinpoint here. Oh, there's footage of the bar, I'm assuming.
That it wasn't because he mentioned Terry. It had nothing to do with Terry, I wouldn't say. It's the fact that Mark became jealous over somebody he thought was coming to see me.
So at some point, after going, whoa, 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 what does that mean? I've never been with Terry.
Just that more jealous, crazy nonsense. Well, lady has no idea what she's supposed to be looking at or where she's supposed to be looking.
All right, and the camera stopped at looks like 24 minutes and 1 second. Lori, it's a little bit difficult here to see, but
You think?
am I pointing at where Mark is right now?
Yes, yes,
And would you be the blonde head of hair hidden behind the woman over there?
yes, I'm in front of Hannah with the hat on.
And that's my next question here. Who am I pointing at right now?
That's Hannah Klinsky.
And we have some other people at the edge of the table. Who are these people?
So that's Hannah's family. And I guess one family friend.
All right. And
Huh.
I'm going to play this or have this video played from 24 minutes and 1 second to 27 minutes, and then we'll talk about it when the clip is over.
Okay, it looks like people are talking, going about a normal night. Why so long? Like, again, there's a reason she was found not guilty, right? Because all the other witnesses that were there saw the behavior, saw what happened, right? She didn't think that when she was trying to get away at her house and she drove away, she didn't think she, clipped him or hit him until she found him in the snowbank at 6:20. I think it was like 6:29, something like that, in the morning. She came home at 2 a.m. She tried to get a hotel at like the Comfort Inn or something. They were booked. She booked one at a different hotel, but had booked the wrong date, probably because it was past midnight. So she probably did the wrong day. And then came home at 2 in the morning thinking he would probably either be passed out in the man cave or gone. And the car, I think, was there. Yeah, sounds very familiar. And so then she found him at 6:20. She went to go check if he was in the man cave, aka like the garage area, in the morning, and he wasn't. And then she saw his body. So again, the actions of someone who clearly had no idea that they may have or may not have. They claim she hit him, but we have no idea. She could have drove away, and someone else could have clipped him. He could have been, walking in the street. He could have been arguing with someone. When people are that belligerently drunk, like, they'll literally argue with anyone. Like, it doesn't matter. Someone driving down that road could have had an argument. We don't know. No one knows. What we do know is Mark had injuries all over his body, right side and left side. So if you're clipped by a vehicle and you're getting right side and left side injuries, cracked ribs, everything else, John has none of that. John O'Keefe has none of that. So if he was clipped by that vehicle, this truck, right?
All
Okay,
right, we're stopped at 27 minutes.
he has
Lori,
injuries.
do you see Mark, I guess, gesturing and talking during that video?
Yes,
Does that appear consistent with when he was, as you described it, making a scene?
yes.
And do you recall what the topic of conversation was
Right.
when Mark was gesturing and speaking during that video?
Well, I mean, it would have been Terry LaFleur.
All right. And during that time frame, it appeared that Mark was yelling as he was coming towards you. Is that your recollection as well?
Yes.
We had somebody arrive in the table in the middle of that clip, a gentleman wearing a ball cap there. Who's that?
That's Bob Klinsky, Hannah's dad.
And we have, looks like Mr. Stevens arrived as well. Is he the gentleman sitting next to you?
Yeah, he came from the bathroom or something, and he's sitting next to me.
All right. Now, is this one of those moments during the night where it was described as everyone was kind of trying to ignore what was going on between you and Mark?
I mean, that's my impression, yes.
Well, I don't want to get
And
involved, right?
the gentleman who comes up to you, who did you say that was?
Hannah's dad, Bob Klinsky.
And what's your recollection of what happened at that moment?
I don't remember what he said, but I think that he wanted to make sure everything was okay. And it seemed to me that he looked at Mark like he wanted to like be like, hey, bud, let's cut it out type thing. But I mean, that's my perception. I don't remember. I mean, he could have just been, I think that Bob was really just trying to help.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone
Did
would.
Mr. Klinsky's intervention end up causing Mark to drop the topic of Terry LaFleur at any point?
No.
Of course not.
All right. And since this is a difficult to manage video, I'm going to jump ahead to another point here in a moment. But Lori, was this the last time during the evening where Mark was yelling and screaming at you at the bar about his impression that you wanted to have sex with Terry LaFleur?
No, I don't think so.
Did that happen throughout the night?
It did.
All right.
Yeah, they don't just let things go like that at all. It just keeps going and going and going till the end of time,
The same clip from 2
or until they pass out or get further drunk into a blackout stupor.
10 seconds. Let me know when it's queued up. Now, Lori, this is, just to clarify, this is, the next clip is going to be after the two of you returned to the dive bar after initially leaving, okay? So not to throw off your timeline here, but
Love that it's called the dive bar.
Whiskey, let me know when you're ready.
Mhm.
All right, let's play that clip.
Aw. So it's hard to see because she is way in the back there. But again, they're just proving the point that he was acting this way all night long. You know? She's way back here. They're in this area here. I mean, let's see if we can skip ahead here a little because I want her to tell you guys, like,
Getting out to Holman. Holman had features, had another drawing as well. So I was like, well, maybe we could just go there to get away
oh, hold on. Oh, I just did.
from all of this stuff here.
All right. So did anything noteworthy happen while you were leaving the dive bar?
Yeah, so when we were leaving the dive bar, we went outside and Scott Cundy was out there. And he said, come here, I want to show you something, and walked us over to a car.
Who was in the car?
Terry LaFleur and what I believe to have been his wife or girlfriend. I don't know who she was.
There's a woman out there.
Yes.
And what was your reaction to Mr. Cundy taking you over there and showing you Terry LaFleur?
I mean, it was awkward, whereas I was like, hi, you know, it was just an awkward encounter.
Was Mark with you at that point?
He was, until he said, I'm gonna go get the car, or I'm gonna go get the truck.
Okay. How long would you estimate that Mark was gone for?
He just walked right around the corner. Like, I mean, he was in the parking lot still, so he just got the truck and came right back. So, I mean, like 30 seconds. He wasn't gone long at all.
So what happened when Mark got back with the truck?
When Mark got back with the truck, then everybody, like Terry and his friend, got out of the truck as well as Scott, and all walked over to Mark's truck.
Okay. Anything happened at that point when
Good
everyone
point, Danny.
walked over to Mark's truck?
I think they were just, I mean, they were just
You're right,
talking.
girl.
I think they were probably even talking about the truck. It was a guy thing,
How long would you say that you were out
It's
there by the
okay.
truck for?
not long.
What happened next?
We left.
Now, as you were leaving, did you say anything to Mark?
Yeah, well, I said, well, tonight was fun, type thing like that. And he completely disagreed with that statement
Why do you say that Mark completely disagreed with that statement?
because he was angry.
How do you know that?
Because all he wanted to do was fight. He was angry and wanted to argue about the whole Terry LaFleur thing.
So what kind of things was he saying about Terry LaFleur during this car ride?
That he knows that I want to fuck him.
Was he continuing to call you some of the same names?
Yes,
Did he appear to be angry throughout this encounter?
yes.
And did Mark calm down at all during this car ride?
No,
Lori, was Mark's anger at that point, did it scare you in any respect?
absolutely.
Did you take any action in response to being scared of him?
Yes, I actually asked him if he would take me back with my friends so that I could get a safe ride home with them.
Do you recall calling Mr. Stevens on the way back?
Honestly, until I heard Adam say that, I had forgotten about that part
Okay. Now, why did you want to be brought back to the bar?
because I didn't feel comfortable with yes, I can say my husband at that time, because I didn't feel safe with my husband.
Okay. Did Mark agree to take you back?
Yes, which I was shocked.
So let's walk through this step by step by the when you come back. Where did Mark park when he brought you back to the dive bar?
Front row, very first spot when you come out the door.
What happened once Mark parked the truck?
He jumped over on top of me.
Describe that. What do you mean that he jumped over on top of you?
He left his seat, jumped over on top of me, and jumped on top of me and put me in a chokehold again.
Well, let's break that down a little bit. You said that he's actually physically on
What do you want
top
to break
of you.
down?
He was actually physically on top of me, yes.
Did
What the
you feel
hell?
a part of his body on top of you causing you any pain?
Yeah, well, I ended up realizing it later, but I believe it was all of his weight on his elbow is what caused the bruise that would have been seen only by the jurors.
The bruise on your breast?
Correct.
And was Mark saying or doing anything when he jumped on top of you?
Yes, he was calling me all kinds of names and did the same thing over and over all night long, that he knew I wanted to sleep with Terry.
And you said that Mark put you in a chokehold. Describe that for us.
It was like an arm bar. So it wasn't like this. It actually wasn't with like his hands. He was doing his arm bar.
So you're indicating with his
Good one of abusers.
forearm. Was that forearm across your windpipe?
Correct.
Right.
And did that make it difficult for you to breathe when Mark had his forearm across your windpipe?
Yes,
How you think?
Is that something that he's done before with you?
yes.
And how did you feel, Lori, when Mark was on top of you,
Afraid.
weight all on top of you, choking you, and screaming about Terry LaFleur?
I was scared. I was terrified of him.
Had you ever seen Mark get this aggravated about an innocuous comment about some other man?
Never to this point, no.
So what happened next?
I mean, well, okay. To the point where he got off of me, or to the point,
So let's break it down a little bit here and talk about, did Mark grab your head at any point?
so he was like forcing, with the chokehold, he was like forcing, so my head was against, well, I was like in between the two seats, the truck seats. but I'm sure that that's when, like, my earring ripped out because he was holding my head down.
So he's sitting on top of you, kind of like I'm positioning now, with his elbow down, and his forearm across your throat.
Correct.
Were you able to get up on your own power at that point, Lori?
Not with it until he got off of me, no.
It's huge.
Have you ever been able to fight Mark off when he gets like that?
Not when he's on top of me, no. With all of his weight, no.
Now, what caused Mark to get off of you, if you're aware?
I mean, I don't remember. I don't remember him. I don't know how it ended. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
That's okay. When Mark got off of you, did
Yeah,
anything happen in the car before you ended
Trauma.
up getting out?
Yes, he demanded his phone,
All right,
course he did.
so, did you give him the phone?
of course.
And tell us about getting out of the truck.
So I mean, I remember opening, every detail I don't remember, but I just remember opening the door, and I don't know if I kind of like just slid out or if I just tried to get out quickly. But I think that I think that's when I injured my leg, coming down onto the bar. That's when I think I injured my leg. I don't know if it was from Mark being on me or the bar, but I honestly think it's probably the bar that did it.
Sure. When you got out, how would you describe your emotional condition at that point?
Huh.
Lori?
I mean, I was like shocked, sad. I was
Right.
in disbelief of what he was doing. Like I was like, I didn't understand how we got to that point.
Was he still verbally yelling and screaming?
Yes.
Where did you go once you got yourself out of the truck?
I went into the table that Adam and Hannah were at with her family.
And it might sound like another obvious question, but why did you go to Adam and Hannah?
Well, because I knew that they would be like support for me there.
Did you feel safer with the two of them than you did with Mark at that point?
Oh, absolutely.
So at some point when you got to the table with Adam and Hannah,
Also,
did Mark reach out and
let's point out real quick, and anybody who's a domestic abuse survivor knows this, that yeah, she is scared. That normally, not all the time, but most of the time, abusers won't do it in front of other people, or at least not. They'll toe the line, but they won't just take your head and smash it off a table if there's other people there. So clearly, she was smart enough to know to position herself in between these two people that she knew and felt comfortable with, so that he wouldn't, try to, because if she was sitting by herself, it would have been easy enough for him to grab her arm and sort of lead her out to wherever he wanted her to do whatever he wanted her to do, and abuse her further. But she knew he would not be able to do that if she was sitting in between two people. I mean, them wanting her to recall some of the, like, every little detail is going to be difficult anyway. It's going to be difficult anyway because it's trauma. It's trauma. It's trauma. So your trauma response, like some of the stuff that happened to me when I was abused, like it comes back in bits and pieces when you're repressing it, when your own brain's repressing it. And that lady's going to have to do some very serious trauma therapy. Yeah, exactly. And when they no longer can control themselves in front of other people, that's how you know they're brazen enough to not give a fuck whether they're going to kill you or not. That's the bottom line. My abuser was very careful about where there was bruises on me, except for my face. And it wasn't like big black eyes. It was that he used to grab my face like this. And then I would get like finger marks, thumb here, fingers here, or opposite way, thumb here, fingers here. And so I'd have little bruises of the finger marks on my face. Because he used to try to like put his hand over my nose and mouth, and you would see the marks. And after a while, he stopped like making sure it was pressure enough to make a bruise. But they're very careful about what they do in front of people. When they start doing it in front of people where they don't care is when you're they don't care if they kill you or not. Not that they cared before, but most of the time they stop themselves before they could. So this poor woman is having to relive this entire thing on the stand, and then she's got to be cross-examined by, the DA, who's going to badger her. Like, the bottom line is going to badger her. She's going to have to deal with the abuse, in front of the world, unfortunately. Then again, if you're just popping in, she was found not guilty. The article I read was 2 hours ago that the jury found her not guilty, and you can clearly see why. Like, she's trying to get away from someone, she accidentally clips him. All of her actions after that show that she clearly did not know that she clipped him at all. Like, you could, the footprints in the snow prove exactly that she came from the house, went to the garage, turned, saw him out of the corner of her eye, and went straight down to where his body was. So, I mean, she went to the garage because that's where his man cave was, basically.
Any respect to you that you're aware of?
So Mark, I gave Mark my phone. But Mark was using my phone to call Adam Stevens
How did you know that?
because Adam told me.
Were you sitting right there with Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
And did you want to talk to Mark at that point?
No, but he continued to call. I want to say he called Adam like 3 or 4 times.
At some point, did you end up taking the phone and talking to Mark?
Well, I think I took it, but Adam may have also handed it to me, but I was ready to take it because I took the phone and I said, leave Stevens. I call Adam Stevens. I go, leave Stevens out of this. Quit calling him.
Was that the end of your conversation?
It was not.
What happened next?
He asked me if Terry LaFleur was still in the bar.
No,
Was Mr. LaFleur still there?
I looked around and I found him, yes.
Did you indicate to your husband whether or not Terry was still there?
I told him he was.
What happened then?
He told me to go to him.
Did you?
Of course.
oh hell no.
And what happened
That's
once you
right, I
got to
don't
Mr.
like-
LaFleur?
What I remember Mark saying is, tell him I'm going to kick his ass.
How did you react to that, standing next to Mr. LaFleur with your husband telling you to tell Mr. LaFleur that he was going to kick his ass?
I mean, it was super uncomfortable, but I can remember I'm holding the phone talking to Mark and I remember looking at Terry and I'm like, he's crazy right now. Like he's crazy. Just, I'm sorry type thing.
So did you actually say it?
Yeah. I said, he's crazy. Yes.
Oh, you told Mr. LaFleur that Mark said he was going to come in and kick his ass.
Mark was being crazy. Yes.
And when Mark said he was going to kick Terry's ass, could you describe kind of the tone of Mark's voice when he was talking, when he was saying that?
I want one.
Oh, he was very serious. He's like, I'm going to tell him I'm going to come back and kick his ass.
I want a
So
bar.
this wasn't a joke or?
It was not a joke. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish.
Sure. Now, at some point during this time frame, Lori, did you see Mark back inside of the bar?
Yes.
Can you describe what you saw when you initially saw Mark back in the bar?
So Mark came back in and he was like by the doorway and he was he was making a scene again and yelling and telling me to get back in the truck.
Oh hell no.
And I just remember looking at Hannah and Hannah's like, just go to him, make him just go to him so he'll stop.
Fair to say that Mark was embarrassing
that was
everyone that
stupid.
he was
That was
in.
smart friend.
I'm sure he did.
So
Yeah, go to him so he can kill you. Great
did
idea.
you go to him?
I started to, yes.
You said you started to. Did something happen that stopped that process?
Yes.
What?
Mark said something to me when I was heading his way, and it was like, get your fucking ass over here
Oh,
right
hell
now.
no.
And I was like, oh shit, no. There's no way I'm going by him. No.
And you demonstrated that in kind of an angry tone of voice. Did Mark appear to be angry with you at that point?
Yes.
Why didn't you want to go to him in that state?
Because he had been drinking and he was angry.
Now, did you have any contact with Mark after that event where he told you to get your fucking ass back there?
The attorney.
Did I have contact with him?
Yep. Did you end up talking to Mark at some point after that?
Yes.
Was there any point in the evening when he appeared to have calmed down a little bit?
Yes.
Could you describe what led you to that belief?
So Mark had sent me a text that said, I'm so sorry. I love you.
Now, I should ask you as a predicate here, Lori, was at some point, did you get your telephone back?
Yes, I believe that there is a video that showing him coming in, holding my phone, and when he came to the phone, where I was sitting at the table, you could see he set my phone down.
So that text message of "I'm so sorry, I love you," was that something that was sent to your phone then from Mark's phone?
Correct.
What did that mean to you when you got that text from Mark?
I told Adam and Hannah that I felt that he had calmed down and realized what his mistakes for the night. So I felt that he had changed his demeanor.
And I'm gonna get the Elmo up, please.
What are they going to show us now?
Displaying exhibit 517, previously been admitted. I'm gonna scroll in here. Lori, it's in UTC time again, so subtracting 6 hours.
It's a
would be
rotary
around,
cut.
This is why I went to law school instead of medical school.
Yeah.
It'd be later in the evening, but does this appear to be the text that you got from Mark? 8:52 p.m., yes.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. And you said that that was kind of a sign to you that you, that calming down at that point?
Correct.
Is that something that you would look for in typical or other instances where Mark was upset with you, that something like that, a text message acknowledging that he was sorry, was a sign that he was starting to come to grips with his anger?
Correct.
Right, Mary.
So what did you do in response to receiving that text message from Mark?
I told Adam and Hannah and her family that they could leave, that I felt I was in good hands now.
Okay. Did Adam and Hannah and her family end up leaving?
At some point, I mean, I know Adam and Hannah did. I guess I don't, I'm not sure about her family.
Sure. So let's talk about when you were leaving, Lori. Did you have any conversations with Mark, or did you have any interactions with Mark inside of the bar before you left?
Oh, yeah, I mean, several. So, I mean, he was talking to somebody originally, and that person, I didn't know who he was, and him and his wife, and then they ended up leaving. So Mark and I were able to talk, just the two of us, and I remember telling him, I'm like, my boob hurts. And he's like, the fuck do you mean your boob hurts? I didn't touch your boobs. I'm like, Mark, you had to have. He's like, who the fuck touched your boobs? Like, he got just mad all over again. And I was like,
Oh,
oh my
boy.
God, I wish I would have never said anything.
At
Like
that
you
point,
hurt
was
me.
it evident to you that that anger from earlier in the evening was boiling over
Even though
again?
he's there, right?
Yes.
Like,
How did you feel at that point,
that's
Lori?
a crazy person.
Well, I was scared, but I knew that I'd already had my friends going home. So, and I knew that we were going to go home. So, I went to the bathroom and texted Hannah.
What did you text, or why did you go to the bathroom to text Hannah?
So that Mark didn't know that I was letting her know that he got angry again.
Okay, and I'm going to display Exhibit 77 on the Elmo again. Lori, we've been over this exhibit several times in this trial, but does the top of this
It's already
exhibit here
against it.
represent your initial text message to Hannah Klinsky?
Yes.
Jesus, can't see anything.
What did you mean by "shit just got real"?
Well, I knew Hannah would know what I meant by that, but she then would know that Mark and I were back at it again.
Why did you feel the need to let somebody know that?
Safety.
Normally I don't talk. I mean, normally I don't say anything to anybody. So, but I just know that she knew about everything that happened that night. So I felt that I could confide in her.
Why did you ask Hannah to not reply back and indicate that you were deleting the message, Lori?
Because I didn't want Mark knowing that I told her.
Yep.
Is that something that you would have been concerned about if Mark saw that text message?
Yep. Because it
Yes.
started a fight. Telling everybody our business. Blah 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 blah. You're a fucking bitch. Yep. I know how that
Now,
goes.
Lori, there were a number of different clips of you going in and out of the dive bar towards the end of the evening. Is that correct?
I mean, I guess I don't remember going in and out that many times. I'll tell you that right now.
So let's talk about when you got out of the restroom. What did you do at that point?
So when I got out of the restroom, I didn't see Mark. So I got the crazy idea to just get in the truck and take off on my own.
Did you have your own key to the truck?
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Why did you decide to get in the truck and take off on your own?
Because I didn't think it would be a good thing if we were together, since Mark was getting mad all over again.
Okay. And at the moment,
Try to be smart, save
did
her
you
own
know
life.
where Mark was at?
I assume the restroom.
So when you got out to the truck, what happened?
I put it in reverse. I don't know if I actually moved or not when I saw Mark coming out of the bar.
What did you do when you saw Mark outside of the bar?
Put it in drive and got out of the truck.
Okay. How did Mark appear when he came over to you?
I'm
at the
sorry,
truck?
park. I apologize. I put it in park.
How did Mark appear when he came over to you at the truck?
He was furious that I was leaving without him.
What happened?
When I got out of the truck, he like slammed me up against the truck, yelling at me like he was in disbelief that I was leaving him. And then he grabbed my arm and walked me around the truck, opened my door, threw me in, well, as much as he could as from where he was standing, shut the door and punched the window.
So you said that he grabbed you and slammed you against the truck, and you motioned with it. You motioned with both of your hands and did a pushing motion forward. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did I get that gesture essentially right? He grabbed you by the shoulders or the forearms and slammed you up against the side of the truck.
Yes.
And
Just crazy. Like,
was he saying anything during this time frame?
Well, he
absolutely.
was very upset. I mean, I don't recall everything he said. He was just very upset that I was leaving without him.
Still very visibly angry at that point.
Absolutely.
Did you say anything in response, Lori? Did you raise your voice at any point during that encounter?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes, I did. There were people outside. So when he did that, I raised my voice and I said, stop, you've done enough tonight. And I thought by raising my voice that I would get
Cause attention.
others to potentially hear at the minimum here to see that there was something going on over on my side of on the driver's side of the truck.
Yep.
Was there anybody outside that you could see?
Yes, there were people outside. That's the reason I raised my voice.
Did
Mhm.
anybody come to help you when you raised your voice?
No.
Shocker.
Now, Lori, you said that Mark grabbed you by the arm and walked you around the truck. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
Could you describe how he grabbed you by the arm and how that looked?
I think you saw the bruises, but his hand
Yes,
was
did.
right underneath my arm, dragging me along. I mean, taking me along forcefully to the passenger side.
Did that hurt when Mark was grabbing your arm?
Of course it did.
Was he grabbing your arm, I guess, in a hard manner?
Yes.
Did you feel like you had any choice but
What
to
other choice you
follow
have?
along as he grabbed you and dragged you
That
around
or
the
what?
side?
Fight him?
There was no other choice. I was going with Mark. Yes. Yes, I had to go with Mark.
And I'm going to display what's been previously admitted as Exhibit 523.
The bruises on her arm.
Lori, what are we looking at in
Everything's
this
very
photograph?
clean here.
My
Which is
arm.
weird.
And it looks like there's some bruising along your bicep in the middle of
I've
your
had
arm.
that exact
Correct.
bruise. I know exactly
That
what that looks
approximately
like
where
from
Mark
having
was
your arm
grabbing
grabbed.
you and dragging you.
Yes.
So when you got to the passenger side of the truck, was it evident to you what Mark wanted you to do at that point?
Well, we were going home.
Did you feel like you had an option to not get in the truck at that point? Lori?
No, no. I mean, I wish there would have been an option, but no, there was no option.
How did the door get closed to the passenger side at that point?
Mark slammed it.
And you said that Mark punched the window.
He did.
Could you describe that? Did he punch at the window or did he physically punch the window?
He punched the window.
Where was his fist in relation to where your head was?
Right at my head. I mean, when I'm sitting there and he's punching the window, that's right where I'm sitting.
How did you react to that, to Mark punching the window where your head was?
Well, I mean, it was scary, and I knew that there was nothing I could do about it. I knew that I was stuck going home with a very, very angry Mark.
Yeah, what else
Have
you
ever
gonna do?
seen
Fight
him
him
that
off?
angry before, Lori?
No.
Have him hurt you further? Come on.
So let's talk about the drive back home from the dive bar to your home in Holman. Was there any conversation during that drive?
Yes, there's a lot of conversation, and it was basically all Terry LaFleur.
Was this
Mhm.
pleasant conversation at any point of the drive?
Pleasant? Never. No.
Was Mark still angry and upset?
Yes,
Was he still calling you names?
Wasn't.
course.
You're right.
And was he still stuck on that idea that you wanted to have sex with Mr. LaFleur?
correct.
Now, at any point during this, or did the intensity of that behavior frighten you at any point, Lori?
Yes.
Had you ever seen him this out of control on a car ride before?
On a car ride? No. No. I've never seen Mark that out of control in my life.
Did you do anything during that car ride home to try and have him get a grip?
I took my ring off and gave it to him.
When you say your ring, what kind of ring do you mean?
My wedding ring.
Why did you do that, Lori?
I said, I can't do this anymore. I was hoping that he would take it seriously enough that he would realize that his actions were going to end our marriage if they continued.
How did Mark react to that when you gave him your wedding ring back and said you couldn't do that anymore?
He said, please, please don't give me that back.
Did he calm down a little bit?
That's the only time that he was calm.
Did he seem to realize that his behavior might lead to the eventual loss of his marriage?
Well, yeah.
Now, Lori, had you come up with any plans of what you would do to keep yourself safe when you got back home?
I had decided that I wasn't going to stay at home, that I wasn't going to sleep in the house with Mark.
So what was the plan?
I didn't have a plan at that time. I just knew I wasn't staying there.
All right. And it might sound again like an obvious question, but I still have to ask you at this stage, why weren't you going to stay there?
Because Mark was in a mood that I didn't feel safe to be with him.
So when you got back home, what did you do?
Actually, Mark went in the house right away, and I didn't remember when I was talking to Mr. Leinfelder that I did go in the house, but I did go in the house. We had 2 seltzers that were in the truck, and I put them on the counter, and then I went to the bathroom and grabbed my contacts and contact case and my glasses
Why'd you grab your contacts and your glasses?
because I was going to leave and stay somewhere else.
So where did you go once you grabbed your contact lenses and your glasses?
Back to the truck.
What's the next thing what's the next time that you remember seeing
Yeah, it
Mark
is.
after you got back to the truck?
Mark was running out of the house, and when I looked at him, he was running out of the house like this, charging towards me in the truck.
And you motioned that you
hard
had
to
your
listen.
right fist up, made into a fist,
But important.
back by, I guess, your head. Is that correct?
Coming towards the window, correct.
And did it appear that Mark had his fist up like he was about to strike something?
Yes, I mean, like it was like a threat coming towards me, correct.
You said that he was running toward you. Did I hear that right, Lori?
Or moving very briskly, yes. I don't know if he was, he was moving quickly towards me, yes.
How did you react to that when Mark was moving quickly towards you with his fist up like that?
I remember going, no, 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 Mark. I remember saying that 100%.
Were you scared of Mark at that point?
Very scared.
What happened next?
It's like something clicked and he's like, well, if you're leaving, I'm going to get all my stuff out of the truck. So he came over to the passenger side and started just rummaging through crap that was in the truck. And that's the best word I can use for the things that they were worthless things.
And what was your impression of what Mark was doing at that point?
I think that he was trying to delay me from leaving.
When you say that he was rummaging through crap, can we talk about a little bit what some of that was?
Yeah, so I mean, there were some can koozies, there was like some bank receipts, there was some beer chips I remember seeing, gum, like nothing of value.
And where was he placing all of this property when he was going through the truck?
Everything was put onto the passenger side seat.
Was Mark saying anything to you as he was going through all of these items?
Yeah, I mean, he was like, I'm, just so you
did.
know, I'm changing the locks, which he always said. And then he found, I mean, he was saying a bunch of things. He was just trying to hurt me. But he also found some beer chips to a tavern in Holman. And he said that he was going to go there and go find some women.
Was this in the course of continuing to yell and scream at you?
Yes.
And at some point, did Mark come upon a can koozie that you saw earlier in this trial?
Yes. I forgot about that. Yes.
Was did you recognize that can koozie?
Yeah. So Mark bought me that can koozie on my birthday. My birthday was the month prior to that. And it was, well, you saw it, part of it anyway, but it was a can koozie that had like an animated, they were like animated breasts. And it said, "Tits my birthday" on it.
Did Mark do anything when he came across that can koozie?
Yeah. He threw it at me and he said, "Here, this is all you're good for."
What did
I'm
you
making
do in
myself
response
that
to
koozie. Tits my
I was
birthday.
like, whatever. And I tossed it out the door. I mean, he was like rummaging through stuff. He didn't even know it went over his head and out the door.
Was Mark calming down at all during this time frame?
No.
And Lori, was anything you were saying or doing causing Mark to calm down or reduce the intensity of his behavior that night?
No, he just kept getting more and more furious.
So as you saw Mark behaving this way at the passenger side
Sounds
of the
about right.
truck, did you do anything in response?
When he was getting furious? Oh, yes. So I grabbed my phone because he hadn't taken it yet. So I still had my phone. So I wanted to record how he was treating me, how he was talking to me, so that he could hear it the next day to realize the crap that I go through with him when he's drunk.
Mm.
Were you able to get your phone out?
Partially, yes. I got my phone.
I just want to skip a little because I want her to explain what happened like right before.
To tell people about things that happened between Mark and myself. Like, it was around 6:30.
Okay. Was it light out yet? Was it dark? What was the conditions that you recall?
I mean, it was lighter than when I got home, but it was still a little dark.
All right. So what was the plan when you got up? What did you?
This is when she got up and found him. It's back here must be where.
Absolutely not.
Why were you sending this text message to Hannah?
Again, I mean, Hannah knew what I went through that night, and she was the only person. I'm not one to tell people about things that happen between Mark and myself. Like, I think there's probably like my kids and stuff are a little shocked about this trial right now, things they've heard. So like Hannah didn't know things before, Adam didn't know things before. I don't talk about it, but Hannah, I could trust that night because she already knew stuff.
I want to focus on the bottom line of that
I mean,
text message. He promised he would never touch me. He lied. What did you mean by that, Lori?
So, I mean, we've had instances in the past. And the last time he told me, he goes, that he would never touch me. So I figured that he meant again, I was under the understanding that we were going to start all over in Bismarck and start a whole new life together, a happy life. And I believe that he was going to change his ways.
Yeah, we all
Were
believe
you
that.
trying to say that to
Unfortunately,
Hannah with this text message that this was the very first time that Mark had physically abused you?
No, she already knew better than that.
Now,
So is this a good time for a break at this point?
yeah, Judge, if you can give me maybe 2 minutes, I think I'll finish up this subchapter here.
Okay.
All right. So, Lori, I want to talk to you a little bit about your exchange with Hannah as well. And that,
okay, the exchange with Hannah, but how do we skip from that?
why were you planning on staying in a hotel at this point?
I didn't have anywhere else to go. I knew I
Okay, that's where she's okay. So okay,
wasn't familiar with the truck.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you'd only driven this a few times before, maybe?
Right, and the doors lock on their own once you hit like 10, 15 miles an hour, so I've never had to use the door locks.
Nope.
Now, at some point, did you see Mark clear the front of the truck and reach towards the side of the driver's side?
Yes, well, I know he wasn't in front of the truck because that's the only thing I could see was the front of the truck.
Right.
How close would you estimate Mark was to the truck before you made the decision to hit the accelerator?
That he was at my side of the door. He was right, I would say he was right at my door.
And Lori, what were you thinking when you, or let me ask you this, did you put the truck into drive and hit the accelerator?
I did,
What were you thinking during that
Right.
process?
to get the hell out of there.
Quickly.
Were you even spending much time consciously thinking about this?
No.
No, I mean, my husband's here, he's not in, so I should say, when I see forward only, it's because it's dark out and this door is wide open, so my light is on inside the truck.
You can't
So
see
it's
shit.
right inside the truck. I can see forward because of the lights,
I don't see anywhere else.
but it was hard to see anything else, but I knew that he had cleared the front because he was not in my vision.
And Lori, is it fair to say, characterize your reaction here as more instinct and less conscious thought process?
Yeah.
100% instinct.
Yeah.
Were you thinking about anything other than getting yourself to safety at that moment?
No,
Why would you be? Getting the hell out of there.
Was this a position, Lori, that you ever asked to be in?
no,
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 that shit.
Was
No.
it something that you had any time to think about and consider the pros, the cons, and the risks?
no. It was like 2 or 3 seconds.
And this is why she's found not guilty today.
Once you hit the gas and left the driveway, where did you go?
I took a right out of the driveway, and that's actually when I took my right, that's when that actually, the passenger door shut. And then I drove down a little bit to a subdivision that ended up being, like, when I say a little bit, I guess it was approximately 2 miles away.
Okay, so let's back up
Yeah,
a
you want to
little
be
bit.
far enough
Is it
away.
your testimony that the passenger side door
Yeah,
was still open
you're
at the
safe.
time that you hit the gas?
Yes,
So it happened that quickly.
correct.
And why did you pull off in the subdivision, Lori?
I was checking to see if Mark was chasing me.
How did you assume that Mark would chase you to the subdivision?
Well, he
Yep.
would have gotten in his old car, the Outback, Subaru Outback.
Subaru. Now,
Yep.
when you got to the subdivision, did you have any reason to believe that Mark had been injured?
None, no.
Were you concentrating on the physical sensation, Lori, of whether or not the tires were coming up against a snowbank or how they felt
No.
on the road as you were fleeing from your
Who
husband?
the fuck's gonna do that? No.
I'll rule. Go ahead.
Were you concentrating on the physical sensations of what the truck felt like when you were fleeing from Mark?
They sure were. And if anybody's been through it, they know exactly what it feels like.
I mean, I don't think so, no.
What was first and foremost in your mind when you were trying to escape from Mark?
To get out of there, to get to safety, to get away from my husband.
Did you have the sense when you left that you thought
Not
you had
thinking. You're just
hit Mark or struck him in some respect?
Not one time, no.
Lori, if you had had that sense that
Should've went
you had
back.
injured Mark or you had hit him with the truck, what would your response have been?
I would have stopped. I would have stopped and helped him.
Now, once you got to that subdivision, did you send Mark any text messages?
From the subdivision? Oh, gosh. I mean, I sent Mark texts that night, but I don't
Sure.
remember where I was.
Well, let me ask about the timeline a little bit here. So, any dispute that the truck was on camera leaving the dive bar around 10:09 p.m.
No, I mean, I've heard that from Mr. Leinfelder.
And do you have any dispute with Deputy Sloan's estimate that it takes about 30 minutes to drive from the dive bar to the home in Holman?
I would say that's pretty accurate.
How long would you say that the argument outside the truck lasted where Mark slammed you against the truck and was screaming at you?
Oh, at the dive bar?
Yes.
It's hard to know
a
how
minute. I don't,
much
2
time.
minutes. I don't know.
And did it take some
Feels
time
like
when you got
forever.
home to go get your contact lens case and your glasses?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was inside probably for like less than a minute probably, but I mean, there was other things that happened in that time.
And then obviously there was some time as well that elapsed while Mark was yelling at you and going through the items in the truck.
Correct.
So if we add, I mean, conservatively 5 minutes to
Yeah.
10:09, and then 30 minutes for travel time, can we say approximately when you would have left Mark would have been around 10:44 p.m., somewhere in that range?
Sure.
Okay.
Like she's
I'm
supposed
showing
to.
you what's previously been admitted as Exhibit 517.
Again, we can't see this. How's the jury see
Lori,
it?
I'm showing you the middle text in this exhibit that begins with "I wish you the best." Do you recognize that text?
I do.
Um,
I can't even read it.
who wrote that text message?
I did.
I'm
And who are you
trying
sending
so
it to?
hard.
Well, it's gonna say boss man, but that means Mark.
Now, subtracting 6 hours from 4:57 UTC leads us to about 10:57
Good
PM.
luck,
Does that
hon.
sound about right?
In
Yes.
Bismarck.
So this would have,
That's all I
would
can
you
say.
have sent this text message
Put your hands
shortly
on.
after fleeing from Mark?
Yes.
The
Um,
good
Why did you send him
on
that text
me.
message, Lori?
Good luck in Bismarck.
Well, because I wanted to let him know that his actions caused our
Yeah.
basic breakup and me not going to Bismarck with him and starting a new life with him.
Were you serious about that at the time that you sent the text message?
Well, she was
Yes.
serious.
And when you sent that text message, Lori, did you have any reason to believe that Mark had been injured or might be dying on the
Negative.
side of your driveway?
None whatsoever.
Um,
No.
Was that wish for good luck in Bismarck, was that sarcastic?
No. Sort of.
Probably. I don't know. I mean,
Did you have the impression that Mark would be going to Bismarck the following week?
yeah, that Sunday, correct.
I wish you the
All right.
best.
Now,
But the best will never be with me. You lost everything tonight because you let your mind get the best of you. I cannot even believe you put your hands on me. Good luck in Bismarck. That's what it says. Holy crap. I'm having a really hard time fucking reading that, dude. I'll tell you that much, dude. That was a friggin' struggle to try to read that. I don't know how they expect. I mean, obviously, maybe the jurors can see it better, but so basically, yeah. So she leaves, she hits the gas, she gets the hell out of there. She goes to a hotel. I think we're creeping up on that part here. Is she? Let me find it.
A whole new life together, a happy life. And I believe that he was going to change his ways.
So that part.
which cameras in particular did you check?
All of them.
Why were you checking all of them, Lori?
Because when I couldn't tell if he had left the house or not with the vehicle, or had somebody actually even come in, I thought, oh my gosh, maybe he's in the hot tub. So that's the reason for the hot tub as well.
Okay. And Lori, do you remember exactly where you were each time that you checked the cameras?
No,
Is it something that you were checking throughout the course of the evening just to see if Mark was up and about?
yes,
Now,
Me too.
at any point,
See how mad he was.
Lori, were you watching anything other than the live feeds from those cameras?
no,
And I'm going to ask you a question that you'll probably get on cross-examination. Were you checking these live feed of cameras to see whether or not Mark had been injured?
no.
Now,
Why would she? That doesn't make any
let's
sense.
talk about where you went
Hit him.
after using the
Okay.
restroom at Woodman's.
Whatever.
Where was that, Lori?
So after leaving Woodman's, then I went back over by the Baymont. And there was like a vacant lot type thing across the street that was dark.
Okay, what was the plan once you got to that vacant lot?
To sleep there.
Okay, were you able to sleep in the truck?
For a short time I did, I think.
Were you able to spend the entire night in that vacant lot?
No, it was too cold.
Okay, so at some point you got cold. What did you decide to do then?
I believe I actually searched to see if there were any other hotels near me. And when I didn't come up with anything, then I decided that it was probably safe to go back home.
Okay, well, what led you to believe that you were safe to go back home?
Late,
at
it's
that
probably
point?
passed out.
Because of Mark, he would have been passed out by then.
That's something that you would have expected, that Mark was probably passed out and
Correct.
wouldn't have been up and aggressive.
Correct. Yep.
Now, when you were going home, Lori, did you do anything particular with the cameras?
Oh, yes, I turned them off so that the alarm didn't wake Mark up.
Is that the sole reason that you turned the cameras off at that point?
I would have
Yes.
too. Otherwise, the motion detection
And
bings.
what would lead you to believe that the alarm might wake Mark up?
Does it bing?
Because there's a beeping, I can't remember if it's a beeping or what it is, it's been a
It's
few
binging.
years, but that it alerts your phone anytime there's movement.
So mine does the exact same thing as what she's saying here. Anytime there's a movement in the parking lot, next to my door, in the house, where the cameras are, I get a binging noise and it goes bing, ding, motion detection, sound detection. So even if it's just motion, it starts binging your phone. So if she was moving and then made sound, it would do a motion detection and then a sound detection when she was pulling in. And then if it took her a second to get out of the car, it would do another motion detection and another sound detection that would bing his phone. Like, that makes 100% sense, especially anyone who's ever owned a camera that has the app on their phone like I do. Sometimes I even have to shut it off when I'm in the house. At least the ones for inside the house, not the ones for outside the house, but the ones for inside the house, because that way my phone's not just going ding, ding, ding every time like someone gets up to the bathroom, get a drink, whatever. Like, because otherwise it's freaking obnoxious. And it just and that's another thing. Anytime anybody moves outside in the hallway, anytime open the front door, yeah, it'll just bing, 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 bing. And so what she's saying is she shut it off so that, AKA, she didn't wake her freaking abuser up for him to be irate again when she came in the house. Now, obviously, the DA tried to argue that, like, she shut the cameras off to, like, hide some sort of fact that she hit him. Like, that doesn't even make sense. It's not a flowing theory in any way, shape, or form with what happened here. But what she's saying is 100% true, and it's something I've literally done before. So I know exactly what she means. I haven't shut it off because of like domestic abuse, but I've shut it off because freaking annoying. Like, freaking annoying. And if you just shut the cameras down, you don't have to worry about the binging, right? Like bing, 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 bing. I normally keep it on, turn it back on once I'm going to bed and I know nobody's really going to be going in or out of their rooms or whatever. But that noise will drive you freaking insane. It's like a seatbelt buckle that constantly beeps if you don't have the seatbelt on. And like, I can ignore that, but some people it drives crazy. And like, put your seatbelt on. That thing's gonna drive me nuts. My friend can tell you about that. It drives her nuts all the time. She's like, put your seatbelt on. My sister does it. Put your seatbelt on. Like, it drives me nuts. I'm like, okay, mom. Thanks, mom. Like, but what she's saying is 100% accurate, and there's nothing fishy to it in my book because I know exactly what she means.
Okay. Were you trying to conceal evidence of you returning home at that point, Lori?
No,
So when you're returning home, and I could get the envelope, please. Exhibit 526. Lori, do you recall exactly which way you took back to your home that evening?
honestly, no, not until I heard somebody else state which way I drove home.
From the area of West Salem, coming from the, I guess it would be the east to the west.
Correct.
But you don't recall that specifically.
I honestly didn't remember that, no.
And Lori, did you see Mark at all when you were driving back home?
No.
Which driveway did you take when you returned back into the home?
So the
I'll
one
give
to
you
the left of the house.
Yeah, I'll give you the laser pointer. Why don't you point that out for us?
This one. Oh, sorry, this one.
So you've indicated the westbound driveway.
Correct.
And, or I guess the western side driveway. And Ms. Phillips, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that the driveway that you typically took regardless of which direction you were coming from?
Me, yes.
Now, let's describe the conditions when you were driving back. Was it light out at all?
No, it was pitch black.
Do you have any street lights or sources of artificial lighting right in that area that would have illuminated the area of the driveway?
No. Well, my truck lights, that's it.
So other than the headlights, nothing else?
Correct.
And as you were driving up that driveway, the western driveway, where was your attention focused when you were driving, Lori?
And the driveway in front of me.
In the Dodge Ram that you were driving, were you seated differently from how you would normally be seated in the Subaru relative to the driveway?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a much bigger vehicle.
And Lori, at any point, did you look over to the right or feel the need to look over to the right as you were driving up that west-facing driveway?
No,
Fair to assume that your attention would have been in front of you on the roadway?
correct. On the driveway, correct.
Lori, I'm just going to ask you, did you see Mark out there when you returned to the house?
No,
How would you have reacted had you seen Mark?
I would have helped him.
Now, when you got back home, where did you park the vehicle?
Right here.
So you've indicated the portico area between the back door to the house and the man cave. Is that correct?
Yep,
And am I correct in assuming that the front of the truck would be facing towards the east then in that view where you parked it?
correct, towards the trees, right.
As opposed to when you left, the front of the truck would have been facing towards the west. Is that correct?
Correct.
When you got out of the truck, did you see Mark at all?
No,
What was your assumption of where Mark was at that point?
in bed sleeping.
Okay, so what did you do when you got back home?
When I got back home, I went inside, but I noticed right away the door was unlocked, which was very unusual, as well as the dining room light was on. But I did see my husband's shoes right at the doorway, so I knew he was sleeping.
Okay, so what was your impression then that the door was unlocked and the light was on?
I was like, wow, he must have been drunker than I thought and must have just passed out.
Okay, so what did you do once you got into the house?
I went inside. I went to the couch to sleep there, but A, it wasn't comfortable, and B, if Mark would have woke up to go use the restroom, he would have walked right past me, and that might have upset him, so I decided to go upstairs.
All right, and
Smart.
had you ever spent the night upstairs before?
No, I don't even know, maybe been upstairs once or twice.
Okay, what was upstairs?
There's 2 bedrooms, but I slept in the small one right when you got upstairs.
Okay, now, were you able to get any sleep up there?
A little bit.
And at any point during the evening, did you do anything else with the cameras?
Yeah, when I woke up at one point and I remember thinking, where am I? I mean, because I was in an unusual spot. And then like everything was going through my mind of everything that happened that night. So I was like, oh my gosh, I need to turn the cameras back on so I don't get in trouble for turning them off to come home.
That's something that you felt that Mark would,
Flip up.
that you would get in trouble for, so to speak?
Yes,
All right, so no dispute that at some point after returning home that you turned the cameras back on?
correct. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a follow-up question. Overruled. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, Lori, about what time do you think that you got up that morning?
I want to say it was around 6:30.
Okay.
this
Was
is
it
where
light
she
out yet?
finds
Was it
him.
dark? What was the conditions that you recall?
I mean, it was lighter than when I got home, but it was still a little dark.
Like,
All right. So what was the plan when you got up? What did you intend to do?
Go downstairs and demand an apology from my husband.
At that point in time, did you feel that Mark would be violent or aggressive?
No, because he would have been more sober.
Okay. You figured that
makes sense.
is this the type of state that you would go to Mark in when you would get apologies in the past?
Yes,
All right, so once you got up, describe what you did.
Once I got up, I used the restroom and then went to our bedroom.
And what did you find when you went into the bedroom?
Our bed was unmade and there was like pillows everywhere.
Was Mark in there?
No.
Did that alarm you at that point, Lori?
Yeah, because I had no idea where he was.
So what was your thought of where
Great.
you would look next?
I thought I would go see if he actually took the Subaru somewhere last night and I just didn't catch it.
Okay. And when you were getting up in the morning, did you have your cell phone with you at that time, Lori?
No. Well, it was upstairs.
Okay. Upstairs where you had slept?
Correct. It was in my purse.
All right. And I'm going to ask that we go to a video on Ms. Witzke's computer here.
This is the outside of the house, I think. Let me
And
see.
this will be Exhibit 507 from the video file, subfile video 1. Lori, do you see that exhibit up on the screen right now?
I do.
It's rainy.
And is that you in the photograph to the left?
Yes.
Is that the position where the truck was parked after you returned back home?
Yes.
So
Lori,
where?
what are you doing in this video clip?
I went outside to go to the garage.
Okay, and I'm going to give you the laser pointer. I want you to point out where to the garage you were headed towards.
I'm like looking at it and I can see that she's.
The door is right there.
Okay, so you're
Not
pointing
that you
at.
guys can see where I'm pointing,
looks like
but
there's part of the side door visible on the garage. Is that correct?
Right. It's brown.
At this point, Lori, did you have any reason to believe that Mark had been injured?
None. No.
clearly
All
no.
right, let's play the clip.
Such a shitty
All right.
clip. Like
Does
that's it.
that
Not even a second.
is that consistent with what you
second.
remember initially coming out of the house, that
Yeah.
you were walking just towards the garage to see whether or not the
Sorry,
Subaru
guys.
was there?
Correct.
And Lori, did you appear to be upset or visibly shaken in that particular clip?
No.
All right, if we could get clip number 2 ready to go, please.
The fact that I have to lean in to look at these on my laptop is pretty sad.
All right, so
Because the camera's up
Lori, did you
there.
make it all the way to
That's
the
like
garage
in here.
when you went out looking for Mark?
No.
Why not?
Because I saw my husband out of the corner of my eye.
Ooh.
How did you react to that?
I freaked out and I ran straight to him.
Okay. I'm going to play clip number 2 at full volume, please.
And she did. You hear him yell? You can hear her yell.
Lori, what were we hearing in that clip?
Me
What were you doing?
yelling, crying,
Oh.
And why were you crying?
because I found my husband dead.
Is that the exact moment that you saw that Mark was out there?
Yes.
Let's get clip number 3 up, please.
Oh God. It's
Lori, what
bleeding.
did you do when you saw Mark laying out in the snowbank?
I ran to him.
And what did you see about or notice about Mark when you ran to him?
He was
That
frozen.
he wasn't breathing. He wasn't alive anymore.
What led you to believe that he wasn't alive?
His hands were like purple. I could tell. It was obvious.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
And how did you react to seeing Mark out there dead?
I mean, I mean,
Give me a minute.
how did I react? I mean, I was in disbelief. I was in shock. I just ran. Then I ran inside the house to go get my phone to call 911.
You didn't have your phone with you at that point?
I did not have my phone. No.
I've got clip number 3 up here. Lori, do you recognize yourself in that
Yeah,
clip?
it is stupid cold in Wisconsin.
Yes.
All right, if we could play clip number 3, please.
No. Poor woman. And then she's on trial for you know, this.
That one takes me right back to that day.
I'm sure it does.
Lori, do you need a moment?
No.
She wants it over with. I'd want it over with too.
What was happening in that clip?
I was running back inside to go get my phone to call 911.
And it sounds like you were screaming or crying during that clip.
Correct.
And it sounds like a stupid question, but I have to ask you, why were you screaming or crying?
Because I just found my husband.
Now, prior to these video clips that we just showed, Lori, did you have any idea that Mark had passed away?
No, none.
Obviously, that's pretty
After
obvious.
running into the house, where did you go?
I ran upstairs to get my phone to call 911.
And we've heard the 911 call. I'm not going to play that again. But
Let's
do you
not.
remember much about that call, Lori?
No,
Why
I
not?
was in shock.
I was in shock. I just remember answering whatever they needed me to answer and trying to do whatever they needed me to do.
What did you
Police
hope that
trucks.
the 911 dispatcher would do?
Bring help.
Tell me how to save him.
Did you think at that point that that there was any point that Mark could be revived based on your observations?
She's not a doctor.
No.
So,
I mean,
do you recall
doctor, she doesn't know.
Sergeant Valencia arriving at your house?
I wouldn't have known who he was, but yes, I remember a police officer getting there, yes.
And what was your condition or your state of mind when Sergeant Valencia arrived?
Again, I was in shock.
Do you feel like you had a clear head when you were talking to Sergeant Valencia?
No.
No,
Do you remember much of what you said to Sergeant Valencia?
no.
How about Deputy Stotinger, who took you inside?
I remember being inside with Mr. Leinfelder. I don't remember.
And let's talk about Mr.
It happens.
Leinfelder.
Trauma response.
Is that somebody that you had known of at the very least prior to February 22nd of 2019?
Yes,
In what capacity?
just from lacrosse. I've known Fritz for 30 plus years. Excuse me, Mr. Leinfelder.
Just from seeing him around?
Correct.
And do you remember much of your conversation with Mr. Leinfelder inside of the house?
I mean, I remember telling him, answering his questions. Do I remember everything I said? No.
At some
It's just
point,
awful.
did you go to the Homeland Police Department to talk to Investigator Leinfelder?
I did.
And what was your impression of why you did that?
So that we could figure out what happened to Mark.
What
So
the
I
hell
could
do you
help
mean?
him,
Yeah.
give him any information I knew.
At that point, did you have any reason to believe that you were a suspect in Mark's death?
None. No, I thought Fritz was helping me.
Of course you did.
And what were you trying to get out to Mr. Leinfelder when you were talking to him at the Homeland Police Department?
What was I trying to get out?
Yeah, that was poorly phrased. What were you trying to communicate to him?
I just wanted him to know everything that happened and hoping that he could figure out what happened.
Lori, were you still upset during that time frame?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the report. She
Were you
was-
thinking very clearly at that point?
I'm sure not. No.
And were there details
I
or
said.
facts that you left out of that interview with Mr.
Probably.
Leinfelder?
Clearly there were, because it had stated that in the video. I continuously said, I forgot this, I forgot this.
Was that because you were trying to mislead
I'm
Investigator
shocked,
Leinfelder?
bro.
Absolutely not.
So what bothers me about that part, the fact that they thought she was lying about something because she didn't remember everything right away, like that really bothers me. And I think it bothers me more because I see people do it online. I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, but I'll see somebody, lay out a story or something and someone be like, well, you're a liar because blah, blah, blah. And then they'll explain like, well, that's because this, this, and this. And the person would be like, but you didn't say that originally. Like, yeah, no shit. Because they didn't think that they needed to tell you their entire fucking life. But this poor woman is in the middle of shock, right? She's at the police station. She's trying to give them everything she knows. And in her brain, she's still trying to figure out what happened to her husband, who she found in a snowbank next to the driveway, frozen to the ground with a little snow over his legs and his hands purple, and she couldn't even do CPR on him because he was so frozen to the ground, basically, right? So this is the article. Where is it? Right here, right? Where they show that this was, as of when I started streaming, it was only 2 hours ago. Okay. And so it says Wisconsin, La Crosse, Wisconsin. After a trial lasting all week, a La Crosse County jury has found Lori Ann Phillips not guilty of second-degree reckless homicide in the death of her husband, Mark. The verdict came in shortly after 7 p.m. after several hours of deliberations. As the court clerk read the not guilty verdict, Phillips quickly dropped her head, then sat motionless as the judge spoke to attorneys in the jury. Earlier in the day, both sides made their closing arguments. Jurors then received their instructions from Judge Elliott Levine before beginning to deliberate Friday afternoon. Phillips was charged with running her husband over with a pickup truck in February 2019 during an argument between the couple. She was charged in June 2020. On Thursday, she testified about what she experienced the night of Mark Phillips' death. Now, the fact that she testified, and everything made sense. Also, it also matched up with the evidence perfectly. That's another thing that really, really bugs me, is that it literally matches up with the evidence that they have perfectly. And this is a great way to show how, someone can be telling the truth and the investigators they didn't, like, even if this woman told them every tiny detail, every tiny detail, they would still say, nope, she did it on purpose. Like, she clearly, and her actions show, she clearly did not clip or hit her husband on purpose. She's trying to get the hell out of there, right? She didn't see him when she came back at 2 in the morning. His legs were a little covered in the snow anyway. But Mark Phillips actually has injuries of being hit. He has cracked ribs and lacerations and, things on the lower body where John O'Keefe does not. So if you're going to say someone got clipped by a vehicle or an SUV, this was a truck, but Karen's car was an SUV. It was a Lexus 570. So you're going to tell me that a Lexus 570 left no marks, no scratches, no lacerations, nothing on the lower half of the body. That just doesn't make any logical sense. And this case is similar in ways where her husband clearly was hit with the vehicle at some point that she didn't know about. But again, they tried to try this woman. They tried to try her. And she was found not guilty, which is exactly what's going to happen for Karen because there's too much reasonable doubt. There's a sloppy investigation, and clearly they got tunnel vision. They did the same thing to Karen, in my opinion. They got tunnel vision and said, this is what must have happened. And first it was a 3-point turn, right? First it was 3-point turn. Then it's the 60 feet, which is fucking impossible. Okay. At 24.2 miles an hour, which is like Danica Patrick style. Like, that doesn't make any logical sense. It's not a fluid theory. Just like the prosecution in this case had no fluid theory, that didn't really make sense. The things they were saying didn't match up with what Lori Ann, said, right? She explained literally everything that happened, and her evidence matches up perfectly. And even in the reports, even in the police report, it says that there was one set of footprints in the snow, and that they went to the garage, towards the garage, and then straight down to Mark's body, and then back up and back down. So that exactly what she's explaining she did, right? That evidence literally matches up with that. But the prosecution's theory is still that she did it on purpose. Like, come on, dude. Like, you guys care more about conviction rates than you do actually, like, locking up an innocent person, and that's got to bug anyone or everyone. Like, it should bother everyone. It probably doesn't, but it should. Because Lori Ann Phillips or Karen Reed could be you or I, or our children, or our grandchildren, or our sister, our mother, our aunt. Like, these two women could be anyone. Legit anyone. And now they both, at least Lori Ann Phillips was found not guilty. Like, now we have to do a whole trial for Karen, which clearly she'll be found not guilty of. There's too much reasonable doubt. Too much. Lori Ann Phillips didn't hit her husband on purpose, dude. She didn't go, oh, I'm going to hit him and I'm going to leave him for dead. And I'm going to come home and I'm going to act like I didn't. And, their argument was she shut the cameras off, like, to hide something. What is she hiding? What is she hiding when she came home? Why is that relevant as to when she came home if she hit him when she left? It's not really relevant one way or another when she came home. She's trying to say that she came home, knew he was there, and went in the house, slept for a few hours, and came back out. Like, I'm not thinking so. Especially if you listen to the audio of the video of her coming out and clearly seeing him for the first time. That is the voice of someone who just found something horrific. Those cries are of someone who is distraught, not someone who's trying to hide something, which is why I'm dying to hear the 911 call from the Reed case. Like, because I think you'll hear exactly what you're supposed to, which is Karen in the background just freaking out, like freaking out. And John was, on the edge of death at that point, the edge of death. Like, that's the similarities in these two cases. And thank you for a viewer for, pointing it out to me a few days ago. For this case, I think, I want to say his name is Paul, but either way, he's from Scotland, I think. And he pointed out this case was very similar. And so I started looking into it and I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, it is. But it also shows what injuries are supposed to look like when you get hit by a vehicle versus what John had, which was pretty much nothing, like pretty much utterly nothing from here down. So, oh yeah, speaking of that, I do have one Cash App from Jersey. She sends a $10 Cash App. Thank you, Jersey girl. And I just didn't want to interrupt the stream for that. We do have one of those. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, so it's Wisconsin. This is Wisconsin, so it's not Massachusetts, by any means, but these two cases are so similar that I'm like, this needs to be pointed out. And I'm glad that she was found not guilty today, because you can clearly tell, like, she didn't just kill her husband, hit him on purpose, leave him there. Like, and that's sort of the state's theory here, right? Karen hit him on purpose, left him there, like, to die, like, and came back. Like, no, what? Make that make sense. Make it make sense. It doesn't. It does not make sense. Not by a damn long shot. Like, it's not a thing, dude. It's not a freaking thing. Like, did anybody else watch this case? Did any of you guys watch this case? Because I know there was a few people that said to me after I talked about it the other night that they looked into it. And, she testified today and yesterday, I believe, Thursday and Friday. And then she was found not guilty at like 7. So when I came on at 9:30, I didn't know until I saw that article. But I'm glad. There's a report for the, let me get it up here. Hold on. Mark Phillips. I don't know if they have the photos. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't see the photos for his autopsy, but there is a report for Mark Phillips' autopsy. Let's see. The pathologist testified 3 days ago. 24 hours ago. Let's see. It says here. You read about it? Yeah, I mean, it was quite interesting to look into. There's a lot of detail in this case, which is crazy, but again, you get all that detail when you get to trial. So, but it says evidence at Holman woman's murder trial focuses on injuries leading to husband's death. Jurors at the Lori Phillips murder trial in La Crosse saw photos from the autopsy of Mark Phillips in court on Tuesday. Lori is accused of reckless homicide for allegedly striking Mark with a truck outside their Holman area residence in February 2019. The defense says Mark may have been badly injured in a fall. and it suggested that if he was hit by a vehicle, that it was an accident, which obviously, clearly it was. Prosecution witnesses continued to take the stand on the second day of the trial. Forensic pathologist Dr. Ross Richard, a Southern Minnesota medical examiner, was questioned in court, and the defense asked whether a fall could have caused the injuries that killed Mark Phillips. Richard said a fall with force could have led to Mark's injuries. Richard spoke about rib fractures and blood loss contributing to the death, saying that several ribs on both sides of Phillips' chest were broken. So both sides of his chest had several ribs broken. Both sides, not just, one side or none. Prosecutors argue that Lori and Mark got into an argument and that she hit him while driving a truck. Lori claims she discovered Mark's body in the snow the morning after the fight. A La Crosse sheriff's deputy who investigated Mark's death said that Lori stated, "I didn't hit him or anything." So again, that statement, just like, Karen's statement, like, "I didn't hit him," that automatically made it so that what? That she did hit him? Like, that's, utterly ridiculous. Yep, frozen to the ground. Yeah, all consistent with being hit with a vehicle, which is totally fine, but she clearly didn't do it on purpose. Like, that's crazy talk. Like, you can clearly tell by her actions when she finds him and all that she clearly didn't hit him on purpose. So in this article here, it says that the trial was on the third day, that this was as of Wednesday. But what pisses me off, where's the thing I show at that point? That's the side of the truck. See how much snow here in Wisconsin they had at the time? Again, that was 2019, right? So, but there was a lot of, injury to him. And where did I find it? I had the documents. I just can't bring them up right now because it would show all my emails and stuff. But in the documents, it says like he's got, lacerations, and no, I don't think she did it on purpose either. But it's lacerations here, there, and everywhere, like all these different things. And, it's, obviously because he was probably clipped with that vehicle, clearly clipped with the vehicle. But that doesn't mean she did it on purpose, right? Like, it's not okay. I have a Cash App from someone. Hold on. It's almost Minnesota. Yeah. La Crosse is almost in Minnesota. So it's interesting to see, where all of the, like, Minnesota gets a ton of snow, like a ton of snow. But it's interesting to see, like, way across the country, there can be something so similar that's happened here. And a lot of the similar, like, issues with the investigations, like, they just jump to conclusions. Like, the statements made of, "I didn't hit him," or "Could I have hit him," automatically led them to go, they hit him on purpose. That happened. Oh, what now? We have a Cash App from Sandy. She sends $30. There's no message. Thank you, Sandy. But that's utterly ridiculous to sit there and think like that magically both of these women with, freaking out. And it's in the reports that she was completely distraught, like, just like Karen, completely and utterly distraught. Like, why you would automatically assume that someone hit someone like that doesn't make any sense to me. That makes no logical sense to me whatsoever. You want to claim that they automatically, like, they were hit because they made that statement. Like, that's insanity. Absolute insanity. Clearly, Lori Phillips did not know that she clipped her husband, if she clipped her husband with that car. But it would make more sense with the injuries that he has. John didn't have those injuries. Lacerations, abrasions, broken ribs, both sides. Like, both sides. Obviously, they say there was more damage to the left side than the right side of him, which obviously means that when he was going to the side of the car, the driver's side of the vehicle, the truck where she was, that he must have had, his left side facing it more than his right side. He could have been going in to grab, the door or whatever as she was pulling away too. That could have been part of it. Like, yeah, exactly. You're supposed to let the evidence build the theory, not develop a theory and then look for the evidence that supports it. If you look for an evidence that supports anything, you'll find it. That supports just the theory you have, you'll find it because that's what you're looking for. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to follow the evidence and let it build the theory, not get a theory and then find the evidence that goes with it, because at any point you're going to find that. And that's like, it happens a lot. Like, it happens a lot. That's not like, in my opinion, like, this is something that needs to be worked on in law enforcement investigations, that like this sort of tunnel vision, this sort of automatic thinking or automatic suspicion of everybody for everything. Which, have you ever been pulled over? And I've had this happen. Have you ever been pulled over and then been told by the cop, well, it was suspicious because you were moving around a lot in your vehicle? Buddy, I was trying to get my freaking coffee in the cup holder and I spilled it a little. So I was trying to clean it up with napkins. So yeah, while I'm driving. So yes, I was moving around a lot. It's not suspicious. Like, they'll literally tell you anything suspicious. One time I was talking to my aunt. She pulled up and I was at a Stop and Shop in Quincy Center. And she just pulled up, like she must have been just in the area or whatever. She saw me in the parking lot getting out of the car. So she pulled up next to me and I'm standing outside her car and outside my car, just talking to her through the window. And a cop pulls up. Oh, it looks suspicious. It could be a drug deal. Sorry, what? What? I'm talking to my 50-something-year-old aunt who's never been in trouble a day in her life because she saw me in the parking lot, and it's suspicious because I'm outside the vehicle and she's inside. It's freezing out. I was already getting out of my vehicle. Like, if you want to find something suspicious, you're going to find anything suspicious. That's the bottom line, period. Like, oh, they found it suspicious. She shut the cameras off. Well, she did not find it suspicious. She was shutting the cameras off because she was trying to not wake up the crazy person that already had abused her. Been there, done that, know exactly what that's like. So yeah, you shut off that camera so that it doesn't go beeping to that person's phone and wake them up or alert them to the fact that you're there. Because if they're not there and it alerts them you're there, guess where they're coming? They're coming there. Like, and you don't want them coming there. You want them to stay wherever the hell they are, sleep it off, get sober, like, then come back. But I'm not going to leave them damn cameras on to the motion detection and sound detection to keep going off and letting them know that I just came home. Not doing that. Like, and I think she did a great job on the stand. And it's not always recommended that a defendant actually get on the stand and actually do a cross-examination, because it can be very difficult. Even if you are innocent, oftentimes they will not get on the stand because the attorney's like, no, A, it's going to be too hard, or B, if you don't remember a certain thing, then try to catch you in a lie by not remembering it. And again, some of these DAs, they don't care. They don't care about what actually happened. They could give a shit less. They're in a trial now. What they want is to win. They want a conviction rate. So therefore, their conviction rate can be like, I have a 98% conviction rate. I'm a great DA. You need to put me as a judge one day. And they get, that's how they move up in the legal world, like by having these great, conviction rates. But do you really want a great conviction rate if that means innocent people are going to go to jail just because you want them convicted? The problem is there is an incentive for them to have a conviction rate. There's no incentive for them to do the right thing. None. There needs to be an incentive to do the right thing and not just have a high conviction rate. Like, that's part of our legal justice system that needs to change, is conviction rates shouldn't be, rewarded. Because just because you convicted somebody didn't mean they were guilty. What needs to be rewarded is if you did everything you were supposed to do. Even if you knew that clearly this person's probably not guilty, but you're going to go for it anyway because you need the conviction rate, because you need the pat on the back, you need the bonus, like whatever it is. Like, because there are actually incentives to have a bigger conviction rate, and there are no incentives to do the right thing. So that needs to change. We need to change something about that. That's not normal, nor is it okay. Like, just because other countries run their courts like a kangaroo court doesn't mean that we should run our courts like a kangaroo court. And the probate court in this country is already run like a damn kangaroo court, especially in Massachusetts. It's run like a damn kangaroo court. Like, literally. Judge, jury, and executioner. Like, guilty. And you got to remember, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. How many times have you seen someone guilty before they prove themselves innocent. It's literally the opposite way around 90% of the time. And that's absurd. Even if it's in the court of public opinion, you have to look past other people's opinions and come to your own conclusion. You don't just take what anyone says and just magically be like, yep, that's what happened. That's it. By George, I think they got it. Maybe look at the evidence yourself. Maybe look into it yourself. Maybe go, wait a second, that doesn't make sense for X, Y, and Z reasons. Maybe I should do my own research on that. Like, everyone's going to have a different theory. That's okay. We're never going to know. But the closer to the truth that you get is by looking into it yourself, not just taking, what everyone says. There's plenty of false information on certain cases that go around all the time, dude. All the time. And you're like, wait a second, that's not a thing. If you actually look yourself, you'll be like, where did that come from? And it just came from someone in a Facebook group saying something, and then just everybody automatically is like, well, this happened. And then you go, show me where that happened. That's not written anywhere. Where did you hear that? Like, oh, well, so-and-so said it over in whatever. Like, doesn't make it true. Or, oh, I heard it from so-and-so. And that person will say, oh, I heard it from so-and-so. And, oh, well, this person said it and they must know because they're close to the case. Like, no, that's probably their theory, which doesn't make it true. It's just their theory, right? Like, you got to come to your own conclusions and your own theories and do your own work to be able to figure these cases out. And there are plenty of people all over the country who have literally solved cases doing what we're doing right now, going over the evidence, talking about the case, trying to figure things out. There are literally cold cases that have been solved this way by people taking it upon themselves to like take their own fresh eyes and look on it and see what they can find. They find some small minor detail that they missed for 20 years and boom, they have a lead and the case is solved after 20 years. Because what they want to call armchair detectives, which I think is like a term where they just want to discredit people who look into these cases, like, they're not armchair detectives. As a matter of fact, those people probably could have been detectives if they wanted to be detectives, chose a different path in life. Doesn't mean that they can't help out through ways and means on the internet like they do here or anywhere else and help out on these cases and say, this was missed. This looks funny to me. This looks a little funky. Like, we got to go back and read every witness report. And what about this person? This person keeps getting mentioned, but nobody's talked to this person. And then people will go out and try to find that person or find someone who knows that person. Like, there have been so many cases that have been solved by armchair detectives that, like, I hate when people do that. Like, oh, you're all just armchair detectives. Maybe. Sure, call it what you want, but there are plenty of people with smarts that can look into these cases and help solve them. Just takes one person. Just if one person looks at a case and goes, wait a second, that doesn't make so much sense. Then guess what? There were detectives who were trained and worked on that case for years and years and years and got nothing. And took one person in a place like this to look into it themselves and go, I think I figured it out. Like, how many years did it take for them to try to crack the codes of, like, what is it? Sam? What is the guy? What is the Son of Sam? Son of Sam. Is it Son of Sam? Or the Zodiac? The Zodiac? Whatever it was. They had those cryptograms. And there was something that could be cracked for like 30 years or something. And then, like, I think it was college students that helped crack one of them. Like, legit just college students. Like, they were smart enough to figure out the cryptogram. Like, and I think there's another one that still hasn't been solved. But either way, there were plenty of trained people who worked on that, the best of the best, and they couldn't crack it. Some college students did. So what's that tell you? It's not about whether you work in law enforcement. It's about your brain and kind of the way it works and the critical thinking skills that you may or may not have, and that someone else's brain works differently than your brain. Maybe it just takes multiple brains coming together to be like, we figured it out. Like, I mean, this was an interesting case, and I thought it was important to bring up because it does have a lot of parallels to Karen's case, and especially in the fact of, like, these two women clearly were distraught when they found their significant others laying in the snow on the, lawn or on the side of the driveway. Like, one was clearly already passed away, but John was on the brink of death. And they were clearly screaming and yelling and upset. Karen got sent to the hospital. She was so upset. What does that tell you? Somebody who just murders someone and just like Danica Patrick's it backwards. Like that's not, you don't act like that afterwards. Like, you ever seen an actual real serial killer do like a interview? There's just evil in their eyes, like just pure and utter evil. Pure and utter. You're looking at them, they have no remorse. They're like, yeah, I killed that person. Yep. And you can see some of their interviews that are taped and stuff, and it's chilling. It's absolutely chilling. Like, there was a girl who killed her husband. Oh, I think it was in Florida. I forget her name. It wasn't like a huge case, but it's one I've seen on like Dateline or whatever, one of those little, shows. And she acted completely normal, and she did like this fake crying thing. And everybody knew it was fake. You could tell it was fake. Like the whole, like, and then of course they found out like she knew he was dead and she didn't care. Like, that's the bottom line. There is a genuine like breakdown of freaking out when you find something out, and there's a non-genuine way. Like, oh, thanks. You totally can be, Kim. You could be a MILF detective if you wanted to be. Totally, totally good. But I mean, all of you, we look into these cases all the time. We legit look into these cases all the time. And you find things and you're like, shit, why didn't they look into that? Why didn't they? Why didn't they get the DNA from Matthew Farwell in the Sandra Birchmore case? They had probable cause. They chose not to because he was a fellow cop. That's why. Like, and just, this is the stuff that, like, if you or I was in charge, like, we would have got that goddamn DNA. Bottom line. And it would have been looked into more. Like, so you can't always count on the people that are trained to do the job. Like, yeah, you're right. They are. So Katie says, except his arm, John O'Keefe's injuries are near identical to Chris McCallum, who was sucker punched, fell on cement, and was brain dead. And they are. They are. I mean, yes, I've said this before. When you have a fracture, crack in the back of the head, it can give you what they call raccoon eyes, right? Like, blood clots around this part of the skull. But at the same time, those raccoon eyes are much bigger than anything I've ever seen. I don't know. Like, and also he was in the cold, so they shouldn't be as swollen. But again, also, I need you guys to do a little prayer sesh. My friend, which is why I wasn't here last night, her boyfriend got in a very bad accident, and he is in a coma and in a hospital. I'm not going to say which one. And he's got a brain bleed, a very bad one. That's getting worse. And so I had to go over and babysit until earlier today. And so she's having a really hard time, and his family's having a really hard time. And it was one car accident. Thankfully, nobody else got hurt, but there was a pole involved, and he has a huge hematoma here, so which is causing, the brain bleed, and it's not getting better. They have a shunt in, and it's not getting better. All the CAT scans are the same right now. So we need some prayers for her and him and the kids, both of their kids, because everybody's just very, very worried. So, I wanted to. So it is and it isn't. I guess it is and it isn't. They are using propofol to keep him under, but he wasn't breathing on his own anyway. So they did put him under with the propofol, but they're going to have to start pulling him off of it and seeing if he can actually breathe on his own. But, he actually had a seizure a few days ago, he's a diabetic as well. So he had a seizure a few days ago, which is like, we don't know what happened. We don't know. He may have had another seizure and got into the accident and hit the pole and like whatever, we don't know. But he is in actual coma. Yeah. It's a drug, like it is drug induced, but he's also not breathing on his own. So they would have had to do that one way or another. So she needs some good juju, and he needs some good juju and prayers, and so do the kids, because they're worried. And I don't blame them. Try to keep them busy earlier, just like play with them, keep their minds off. We had a good time, but we're all tired from it because it happened about 10:30 last night. Yeah, it can happen if his blood sugar is very, very low. Kim, it could. That's the thing. And so that's what they're worried about. But, you know, it's tough. It happened about 10:30 last night. So nobody over there slept, right? Like at all. So I'm exhausted. They're exhausted. The kids are exhausted, but good juju tonight so that, you know, when I get off here and I go lay my head down, maybe I get a good text in the middle of the night. Maybe we wake up and something amazing has happened and the brain bleed has gotten better. And maybe they take him off the propofol and he can finally breathe on his own. Like that's what we hope for, obviously, for his kid's sake, for her sake, for everyone's sake. But we're going to, you know, send a prayer out for Anthony that he gets through that. The kids are a bunch of different ages, but it goes from basically 10 down. It is early for them to pull them out. But they're going to try. They're going to try to, I don't know if they're going to do it tomorrow or the next day, but they're going to try to lower the propofol and see if he wakes up and see if he starts to stir. He's making some atypical movements right now, like this with my eyes closed, like if his eyes are sort of moving right and left like that. And sort of like, you know, twitches of those are atypical. But we're hoping for when they bring him down off the propofol, which is actually, if you guys didn't know, that drug is the drug that Michael Jackson overdosed on. It's used to keep people in a medically induced coma. They've used it on numerous people that I know who have passed away. It is what they use. And that's one of the first things I asked was, do they have him under on the propofol? And so that the answer to that was yes, obviously. But he's not breathing on his own. So, yep, positive for Anthony. Positive vibes for Anthony and the kids. I know his oldest she's having a really hard time with it. And obviously his girlfriend's kids are having a hard time with it too. Why wouldn't they? You know, when they're as young as 4, all the way up to 9. And, you know, and there's 5 kids involved here. So, you know, they're having a tough time. Thankfully, it's the weekend. Thankfully I didn't have school today because of the holiday. Like, you know, and my kid, my little one, you know, played with them all day today. So, you know, they kind of got to get their mind off of it for a while since last night because it's been a long 24 hours. That's for sure. A long 24 hours. I brought my pillow over there and I brought my snacks and I curled up on the couch. So, but all right, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I just want to go over this case with you guys. I love your stinking faces. You guys know I don't do Saturdays. It's family day on Saturdays. I'll be back Sunday. No, I do not have 6 kids, no. 3. 3 is good enough. They're all girls. 6 would be a little too many for me. I mean, I know people that have more than 6 kids, but me, no. 3's good. 3's perfectly good. Like, perfectly good. Absolutely, always. But you guys know I will be back. Yeah, 3's perfect, exactly. Sunday. So, I mean, I could do like a little maybe coffee impromptu in the morning. We could do that. Just have a little coffee chat in the morning. But usually Saturdays are reserved for my family, and it's been a very, very, very long week. But I love all your stinking faces per usual. If you are part of my replay crew, I love your stinking face just as much. The dono information is at the bottom. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. That's how you support this channel. That's how you support me. This is how I, you know, am able to afford to do this and love your stinking faces all the time. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Twisted Tragedies. I love your faces. Bye.